I didn't plan on overhearing my own wife talking about another man. It just happened. I was in the garage fixing a busted wire on the motion light when I realized I had left my phone on the kitchen counter. I walked back inside through the side door, and as I passed the hallway, I heard her voice. Low, careful, but not careful enough. She was in the laundry room. The door was half closed, and the words she whispered into the phone stopped me dead in my tracks. No, he's clueless. He still thinks I'm going to my book club. She let out a breathy laugh. I can't wait to see you tonight. Same place. Room 217. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I stood there like my body had been disconnected from my mind. Her name is Ember. I know, strange name, but she always liked being different. We met in college, married 6 years later, and by now we were 10 years in, no kids. She said she wasn't wired for motherhood. I accepted that. I accepted everything about her. Maybe too much. My name's Daryl, by the way. I'm not special. I'm not some tough guy. I fix heating systems for a living, keep to myself, and watch reruns of old westerns when I can't sleep. Ember always said I was too gentle for my own good. Maybe she was right. But that day, standing there in my own house, I felt like someone had drilled a hole straight through my chest. She hung up. I didn't move until I heard her footsteps on the tile, then quickly tiptoed back into the garage, heart pounding like a drum solo. I closed the door gently and stood there next to my toolbox, trembling like a coward, like someone who just realized his whole life had been a script written by someone else. That night, she left in her usual jeans and hoodie, said she'd be out late. The book club was discussing a heavy one. I nodded like the fool she thought I was. She backed out of the driveway, oblivious to the fact that her quiet, slow-moving husband had finally woken up. I didn't follow her right away. I sat in the kitchen and stared at the wall for a full hour, thinking, replaying everything, wondering how many other lies she'd slipped past me like a magician with a sleight of hand. Then I picked up my keys and left. I drove 2 towns over to a hotel I'd never been to before, but I knew the one she meant. She had mentioned it in passing once last summer. The Thorn Inn said it had character. I didn't realize it had a repeat customer discount, too. When I got there, I walked straight in and told the man behind the counter that I left my ID in the room and needed to check if my wife was still there. I played it clumsy, nervous, like a confused man looking for his spouse. He didn't ask questions. Maybe he saw the look in my eyes. Room 217, he said, tapping a clipboard. She checked in 35 minutes ago. I didn't thank him. I just walked toward the elevator with legs that barely listened to me. On the way up, my reflection in the steel doors looked ghostly, like I was about to meet someone else's wife, someone else's life. I didn't knock when I got there. I used the spare key I'd quietly taken from her purse 3 days ago because something inside me had known even then. And what I saw when I opened the door, she froze. Not in a casual, caught-off-guard way. No. Ember went rigid like a deer watching the headlights bear down on her. One hand was still on the shirtless man's chest. The other was gripping a champagne flute. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. And all I said, quiet and steady, was, "Your book club must have gotten really exciting." The guy? He stood up like I was holding a gun. I wasn't. But in that moment, I think my presence alone was enough to shatter the illusion. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't beg or ask why. I just stood there, absorbing everything. Her dress on the floor, the bed turned down, 2 glasses on the nightstand. And then I walked out. No scene, no second look. Because what came next was going to be the part Ember never saw coming. I drove for nearly 2 hours that night with no destination in mind. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from flying apart. There's this moment when betrayal hits. Not like a wave, but like a stillness. Everything inside you just quiets. You stop being who you were 5 minutes ago. That version of you doesn't exist anymore. You've been rewritten without permission. When I finally pulled into an old gas station off Route 14, I sat there for another 30 minutes, engine running, staring blankly at a flickering security light. Then I checked my phone. She hadn't called. Not a single message. No missed calls. No "where are you?" Texts. I guess she figured I was too soft, too passive, too used to swallowing pain like medicine. Maybe she thought I'd go home, wait for her, and pretend nothing happened. That's the Daryl she married. But not anymore. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't even sleep. I just sat in the living room with a notebook and started listing everything. Dates, excuses, the moments that didn't sit right. Every lie I hadn't questioned. Every time she worked late. Every weekend trip to see her cousin in Rochester. It all began lining up like dominoes. Ember was meticulous, but she'd gotten too comfortable, too confident in my silence. Around 10 a.m., the front door opened slowly. I didn't move. She stepped in like someone sneaking past a sleeping dog, heels in hand, makeup smeared, hair in a ponytail that had once been styled. When she saw me on the couch, her entire body jerked like she'd touched a live wire. "You're home?" she asked, voice tight. "I live here," I said, not even looking at her. "At least for now." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I waited. She finally let out a breath and walked to the kitchen, trying to buy time like it was on sale. She poured herself coffee, even though she never drank it black. I waited again. Silence is the only language a liar doesn't understand. Finally, she said it. "I didn't mean for you to find out like that." I turned to her then, and I swear she shrank. "So, you meant for me to find out some other way?" "I don't know," she muttered. "It wasn't supposed to get this far." "Room 217, I said. "Is that how far?" She flinched. I never stopped loving you, Daryl." I laughed. It was hollow, unfamiliar. "You have a real twisted way of showing love, Ember." She tried to cry, and maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. I let her stand there, arms wrapped around herself like a child who broke a vase and still thinks she might get away with it. "What's his name?" I asked flatly. She hesitated. "You don't need to know that." "Wrong answer." I stood up. "See, I already do, and I'm going to meet him tonight." That's when her eyes widened, and her face drained of color. "Wait, what do you mean you're going to meet him?" I walked past her and grabbed my jacket from the chair. "Let's just say I found out more than you think. And I made a call. He's expecting you tonight. But guess who's showing up instead?" Her knees nearly buckled. I didn't stop. I opened the door and said without looking back, "Don't wait up." What I had planned next would finally shift the power back into my hands. And for once in this marriage, I wouldn't be the one left in the dark. I don't know what kind of man she thought I was married to all these years, but clearly not the kind who'd do what I did next. After leaving the house that morning, I drove to a quiet park and sat under a rusted pavilion. Using a burner phone I picked up weeks ago when I first suspected something was wrong. I texted her lover, pretending to be Ember. I'd studied her texting style, the way she used a lowercase when she was rushing, how she ended flirtatious messages with 3 dots, never just one. It was disturbingly easy to imitate her. I sent, "Need to see you. Same place. 6:30. You know the room." He responded in under a minute. "Been waiting to hear that. I'll be there." And that was it. That was the final piece. I waited until almost 6 o'clock before I arrived at the hotel. I knew the lobby by now, the smell of citrus air freshener trying to mask cheaper scents. Room 217 was at the end of the hall, same as the night before. I got there 5 minutes before our guest of dishonor was due to arrive. I left the door slightly ajar. Lights low, curtains drawn. Then I sat in the corner chair, out of the direct line of sight from the door, heart pounding like a war drum. He knocked once, didn't wait, just pushed the door open casually like he owned the place. He was taller than me, athletic build, clean-cut in that polished, try-hard way. Slacks, rolled-up sleeves, leather band watch. He closed the door behind him and spoke in a voice so smug I nearly lost it. "Couldn't wait, huh?" He chuckled. "You're addicted to me now." He stepped toward the bed, expecting her to emerge in lingerie or some twisted surprise. But then he saw me. I didn't move. I just looked him in the eye. His smile evaporated. "Who the hell are you?" I stood. "Daryl, Ember's husband." He stepped back like I'd just thrown a grenade. "Look, man, this is not what it looks like," he stammered. "Really?" I said, "because it looks a hell of a lot like you've been sneaking around with my wife for months." He tried to speak again, but I cut him off. "Don't lie. You walked into this room thinking she'd be waiting. You brought this on yourself." His face twitched. "She told me you were separated, that you lived in different houses." I actually laughed. "Yeah. Did she also tell you I do all the grocery shopping and fix her damn windshield wipers every time she forgets?" He looked at the floor. "No comeback, no fight." "You don't need to be here, man," he muttered. "This isn't going to fix anything." I stepped closer. "I'm not here to fix it. I'm here to bury it." He didn't understand. So I explained. "Everything's been recorded. The text history, your check-ins, her calls. It's all been backed up. I've filed for divorce, and I've already sent a copy of it to my lawyer, my sister, and her mother. By this time tomorrow, Ember's going to wake up in a different life. No more secrets, no more comfort." His jaw clenched. "You're insane." "Maybe," I replied, "but at least I'm not a liar." I walked past him toward the door. As I opened it, I turned to say one last thing. "She picked a weak man to cheat with. Tells me everything I need to know." And I left him there alone, staring at the consequences of what they thought they'd get away with. But the night wasn't over because Ember had no idea that the next time she looked at her phone, the whole world would be watching. I didn't go straight home that night. I parked outside Ember's office building and waited. I needed to see her face again before the curtain dropped. Needed to witness the moment her well-managed, polished world started caving in on itself. I'd lived so many years sitting silently in the shadows of her life, attending work parties where I was just the husband, smiling while her coworkers called her the independent one. She loved pretending I was invisible. Not tonight. At 7:47 p.m., she walked out of the building, head high, checking her phone, still wearing the same lie on her face she wore every day. She didn't know I'd already triggered the message. While I was in the hotel room with her affair partner, I sent a scheduled group text from her number. Yes, hers. Set to hit in 15 minutes. I'd borrowed her phone the night before while she was asleep, mirrored it to mine using an app, then crafted the bomb. It was short, direct, and included 4 photos. Her and him embracing in the hotel parking lot, her entering the room with him, and finally, a screen grab of one of her filthier texts. I titled the group, "You Deserve to Know the Truth." Recipients: me, her mother, her best friend Addie, her boss, and just for flair, her cousin Lena, who once said I was too plain for Ember. By the time she made it to her car, her phone buzzed once, then again, then 7 more times. She paused, confused. Then I saw her expression change as she looked down. I watched in real time as her soul left her body. She froze, keys halfway to the ignition. Her face twisted into disbelief. Her mouth moved, whispering, "No, no, no," over and over like a broken chant. Then she looked up and saw me sitting across the street in my car. She knew instantly. Her lips parted like she wanted to scream or maybe beg, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned the engine and slowly pulled away, leaving her alone with the buzzing, the shame, and the digital wreckage. That night, she didn't come home. Instead, I got a call around midnight. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked it later, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Daryl, please. I don't know how you did it, but I can't breathe. Can we talk? Please. I made a mistake. This isn't who I am. You don't have to ruin everything." I saved the message. Not because I needed it, but because it was the first time she ever sounded real. Like a scared girl realizing she wasn't untouchable anymore. The next day, my inbox was flooded. Her mother sent a message asking what happened. Addie wrote, "I knew something was off about her lately. I'm sorry you had to find out like that." Her boss didn't reply, though. I heard Ember was encouraged to take personal leave. As for Lena, she replied with one word. Finally. That hit harder than I expected. Apparently, Ember's web of lies had stretched farther than I realized. And the more I looked, the more I found. Bank statements, a second credit card, strange cash withdrawals. This wasn't just an affair. It was a plan. And I was just beginning to understand how deep her betrayal really went. The fallout didn't just hit Ember. It started pulling up the floor beneath me, too. In the days following the group message, silence settled into our house like fog. I hadn't spoken to her since the voicemail. I didn't need to. I was uncovering more truth on my own than she'd ever be brave enough to tell me. It started when I logged into our joint bank account to begin separating finances. What I saw knocked the breath out of me. Nearly $12,000 missing from our savings in the last 3 months. Ember had always handled most of the finances. Her job paid more, and I trusted her to manage the day-to-day bills. But now I could see the transfers. Quiet little withdrawals to a secondary account I'd never known existed. I checked the name on the destination. Ember D. Crosswell. Personal. I blinked. Ember hadn't used her maiden name in years. Why now? I kept digging. There were hotel charges, yes, but also flight bookings, luggage orders, payments to an out-of-state realtor, and worst of all, a legal retainer. She was planning something. I called the law firm, pretended to be a concerned husband whose wife might be getting scammed. The assistant at the front desk, flustered and naive, confirmed what I feared without meaning to. Ember had hired a divorce attorney 2 months ago. She had an appointment next week, her strategy consultation. So, not only was she cheating, she was prepping her exit like a spy crossing a border. She was going to leave me, erase me, and walk away with half of everything, maybe more. Probably make up a narrative about emotional neglect or how we just grew apart. The usual polite lies people tell when the truth is too ugly to say out loud. But the part that hit hardest wasn't even the money or the affair. It was the fake kindness. The way she kept cooking dinners, laughing at shows, asking if I needed anything from the store. She was rehearsing normal while mapping out her escape. I knew then that if I didn't act now, I'd lose more than just pride. I'd lose my home, my stability, my voice. So I reached out to my own lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a woman named Donna Langley, recommended by a guy I knew from a prior job whose wife once tried to sell his car behind his back. Donna didn't just play defense. She played offense. The kind of woman who smiled politely while drafting war plans. I showed her the texts, the photos, the bank statements. Her only response after scrolling through my phone for 10 minutes was, "She's not just cheating. She's laundering her own marriage." We began drafting my own legal strategy, quietly, ruthlessly, cleanly. I opened a new account, moved half of our joint funds, legally permitted in my state since we were still married. I locked down my credit, froze all shared cards, set up alerts for every login attempt on my phone, laptop, and banking access. Donna prepared a separation proposal with an evidence packet attached just in case Ember tried to get cute with the courts. Then I sent Ember one final message. "I know everything. Let's not insult each other further. You'll receive a formal letter soon. Don't contact me again unless it's through counsel." I didn't expect a reply, and I didn't get one. She vanished from the house the next day. No note, no keys, just gone. The bedroom closet was half empty, and the perfume she always wore, an expensive bottle she used sparingly, was missing. But what she left behind was far more interesting, because tucked inside her nightstand, hidden beneath old birthday cards and jewelry boxes, was a notebook. One filled with names, dates, and something she never wanted me to see. A page titled "Life After D." I sat on the edge of the bed holding her notebook like it was radioactive. My hands were shaking, not from rage, but from that hollow kind of hurt that lives deep in your chest when you realize someone you loved had made plans to replace you without ever offering you the dignity of a conversation. The first few pages of the notebook were random scribbles, lists, maybe therapy notes, or just Ember's way of organizing chaos. But then I found the page that made everything crystal clear. At the top, written in her careful, looping handwriting, "Life After D." I stared at the title for minutes before I even turned the page. Somehow, reading it felt more invasive than looking through her texts. This was raw, private, written without any intention of me ever seeing it. And yet, here I was. The first section was a pros and cons list. Yes, she'd actually made one about our marriage. Pros: financial stability, familiarity, loyalty, no drama. Cons: predictable, emotionally passive, unexciting intimacy. Never challenges me. That last one never challenges me. Like being dependable was some character flaw she couldn't forgive. Then came the next section. To do before filing. Move half of joint savings. Done. Meet with Lori, lawyer. Confirmed childless separation strategy. Get keys to Caleb's place. Clear browser history. Remove backup from phone. And finally, what to say if he finds out? I blinked. She had pre-written the excuses. I never wanted to hurt you. It was emotional first. You were drifting away too. This just happened. I still care about you. It was like watching a lie rehearse itself in ink. The last entry was dated 4 days before I caught her at the hotel. Daryl's been acting normal again. I think the suspicion has passed. Caleb wants me to move in before July, but I'm still unsure if that's too fast. Told him I need more time. But honestly, I just don't want a scene. He doesn't deserve one. He's too gentle for war. She wrote that like it was kindness. As if quietly removing me from my own life was the decent thing to do. It wasn't war, she said. She just didn't think I'd fight. Well, she was wrong. I packed up the notebook, took photos of every page, and forwarded them to Donna. She didn't respond with pity, just strategy. Her reply was simple. You have leverage now. Let's use it. By the next day, Donna filed the first official motions for divorce. Not just for infidelity, but for premeditated deceit. The documentation, the texts, the money trail, the notebook. It created a timeline, a pattern, a case, not just against Ember's morality, but her credibility. I hadn't heard from Ember since she left the house. But someone else called me. His name was Caleb. Her emotional affair. The man from the hotel room. The man who apparently thought I wouldn't dare pick up. He called me around 10 p.m. from a private number. Look, Daryl, he said. I just wanted to man, clear the air. Ember told me everything. And I didn't know you two were still involved. I didn't respond. He continued, I think you're taking this really far. Going public with her texts. Sending that message to her mom. It's vindictive and frankly beneath you. I smiled to myself. No, I finally replied. What's beneath me is pretending to be a decent guy while sleeping with someone else's wife. He stuttered. It wasn't like that. You don't understand it. But I hung up. I wasn't going to argue with him. Let him sit with the fact that I didn't need his side of the story because the story was mine now. And I was about to write the ending Ember never saw coming. 3 days after the last call from Caleb, I received an email. Not a text, not a call, an email. Like she wanted a written record of restraint. As if formality could disguise the wreckage behind her words. Subject line, I think we should talk face to face. The body of the email was short. Daryl, I know you don't owe me anything, but I'm asking you to let me explain. Not to fix things, not to undo what's been done, but to be honest at least once. You deserve that. Please meet me. You choose the time and place. I'll show up. I read it 5 times. My first instinct was to ignore it. But then I thought about the notebook again. The life after D. The plans made behind my back. The fake tears. The hotel. The smirking lies. And I realized I needed to hear her say it out loud. I needed to watch her sit across from the man she tried to quietly erase and explain why I wasn't worth the truth until it was too late. So, I responded, tomorrow, 5 p.m. The park on Beechwood and 12th. You'll find me. The next day, I got there early. Sat on the same bench we used to visit when we first dated. Back when she liked to feed ducks and pretend the world was simpler than it really was. I wore the same jacket I had on during our first autumn together. I didn't know why. Maybe I wanted her to see the ghost of the man she threw away. She arrived 5 minutes late. That used to drive me crazy. Now it just made sense. She looked thinner. Not in a tragic way, more like someone who hadn't been sleeping. Her makeup couldn't hide the guilt, and her body language screamed hesitation. She walked slowly, holding her phone like a shield. When she saw me, she didn't smile. She sat down, left 2 feet between us, and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all week. I said nothing. I let the silence hang. Finally, she spoke. I know you hate me. I looked straight ahead. I don't hate you, Ember. That would require more energy than you're worth. She winced. Fair. Another pause. Then came the flood. She talked for nearly 20 minutes straight. Said it started during the pandemic when we were both home. Routines collapsed. Everything felt heavy. Said I stopped being present, that I was physically there but not emotionally. That she felt like we were roommates more than partners. That Caleb was unexpected but filled the gaps I didn't see anymore. She claimed it wasn't planned, that it just evolved. She said she kept me in her life because she loved parts of me but didn't know how to leave without wrecking everything. And that's when I turned to her and asked, "So you wrecked everything anyway?" She stopped. Her mouth hung open for a second, unsure what to say. I shook my head. "You didn't stay because you loved parts of me. You stayed because I was easy to hide behind. You stayed because I never made waves. Because I let you control the story. You wanted Caleb for passion and me for protection. But now you've got neither." Her voice cracked. "Daryl, I'm sorry. I swear I didn't think you'd find out like that." "You didn't think I'd find out at all," I corrected. She looked down. "I thought I could manage it. That it would fade. And when it didn't, I leaned in. You were going to drain our accounts. Walk out with some tragic backstory about how I neglected you. And move in with a man who doesn't even know your middle name." She didn't deny it. And that silence was louder than anything she could have said. I stood up. "You don't need to worry about what happens next," I said. "Because what you built behind my back, I've already dismantled it." Ember looked up at me, eyes full of panic. "What does that mean?" "It means you should have been honest before you started writing your own ending. Now I'm the one holding the pen." And then I walked away. I didn't look back. Not because it was cinematic or powerful, but because I didn't need to. Because for the first time in this mess, I wasn't the man trying to hold something broken together. I was the one letting go. After I left Ember on that park bench, I didn't feel victorious. Not at first. I felt still, like I'd finally stepped out of a burning building and was just beginning to realize I could breathe again. For so long, I had been living in the background of my own life, quiet, accommodating, believing that love meant endurance. But in truth, love without truth isn't love. It's a trap. And I had finally walked free. The next few weeks were full of paperwork, lawyer calls, and conversations I never expected to have. Ember's attorney tried to reach out for a private discussion to settle quickly. I refused. My lawyer, Donna, knew exactly how to handle people like that. People who try to renegotiate the damage they caused as if they were the ones being wronged. We didn't play nice. We played fair, which in our case meant she left with less than she planned. The house, mine. The savings, frozen and audited, traced back to every transfer she made. The divorce finalized within 6 weeks under the grounds of infidelity and deceptive conduct. It didn't just end cleanly. It ended on my terms. But the real change didn't come from the legal side of things. It came in the small moments after. Like the first night I rearranged the living room furniture. Not because I needed to, but because I could. The first morning I woke up without wondering who Ember was texting. The first time I made dinner and sat across from no one and felt peace instead of absence. I started doing things I'd always pushed aside. I joined a woodworking class, something I used to love before Ember said the garage smelled like sawdust and wasted time. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years. Guys who told me they always had a weird feeling about her but didn't want to interfere. Most importantly, I started therapy. Not the kind to fix what she broke, but to understand why I'd allowed myself to be broken that quietly for so long. And through it, I began to understand something Ember never saw. Being soft doesn't make you weak. It means you feel deeply, care quietly, and love without needing applause. But there's a line. And when someone crosses it, you don't owe them your softness anymore. A few months later, I met someone. No, not some dramatic rebound or whirlwind romance. Just a woman named Teresa at the community center woodworking class. She was smart, a little sarcastic, and didn't pretend to be perfect. We talked after class, then we talked longer. She asked questions about my past without judgment. She didn't try to fill the silence. She respected it. She didn't ask me to forget what happened. She reminded me I didn't have to live there anymore. The last time I saw Ember, it was by accident at a grocery store. She was with a friend, holding a small shopping basket and wearing that same controlled expression she always used when things weren't going her way. Our eyes met. She gave a half smile like she wanted to wave. I didn't wave back, not because I hated her, but because I didn't need to carry her anymore. I walked past the aisle and toward something that looked a lot more like my future than she ever did. And for the first time in years, I wasn't scared of what came next. I was ready for it.